and welcome to a special Chats, a television podcast event. This is the beginning of season 16, the tournament of couches, the Beast Wars.
The streaming wars, the couch cup.
Yeah, these are the real streaming wars.
Sorry, David Zaslav. While the writer's strike goes on, we continue to run an unscripted podcast, just like we have for the past 7+ years. And it's time.
It's good to be clear that even though we're talking about television, we're not like crossing the picket line by scripting our podcast.
Absolutely not. No, I would never script our podcast. It would just be worse. It'd be like, hey, I am Alan, and I'm Magellan, and we are, and we'd say like something that makes sense. We don't want that.
That's no good.
Did you hear that they recently, the Tonys were last night, and they did the whole thing unscripted because of that?
Oh, I believe it.
I kind of want to watch some of it later, but neither here nor there. What are we doing here, bud?
Well, we are doing something we've never done in Chat's history before. We're doing an unusual season, this season 16. We did another season where the number of the season is significant in some way, just like 13 under 13. Okay, now we're doing a different number season where, because of the number 16, we are going to be putting together a bracket of 16 television shows that will battle it out week to week to decide which of those shows will be watched in its entirety for the remainder of the season. Pretty fun stuff. So this episode is all about taking and looking at audience votes and deciding which of the 32 shows we initially proposed will make it on the bracket and in what arrangement. And then, we'll go from there.
Amazing. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. So I wanted to just remind folks about some of the reasoning that went into this particular season structure. And then, Alan, you can toss in any thoughts that you have on this as well. But speaking of 13 under 13, we have been enjoying the process of experimenting with our season structure and watching TV in different ways. And we've also recognized that there have been times where people have wanted a little more say in what shows we watch, or at least they want the show selection process to be a bit more transparent. And that goes for Should You Watch as well, another kind of like experimentation in how to watch TV. So we thought, well, let's try something new that also gives us a bit of that transparency and audience involvement and creates a season where the listening experience will hopefully improve as the season goes on, because we'll only keep watching the shows we like the most. And eventually, with confidence, we'll be able to commit to potentially a long show, potentially the next big Chat season, with the confidence that it's something that we like and that you all like and all that. So that's the reasoning behind this season structure.
Yeah, I think our show format and our enthusiasm just is higher and better when we're at least more engaged with the show and not just like accepting its failures. I think that Chats also succeeds on beautiful failures. I think that's like kind of been a guiding ethos for us for a while. But I was just telling Magellan that today I was listening back to an episode of the Chats Overs, which is when we covered The Leftovers, one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And I love listening to that. That was a wonderful podcast experience for me. And when I mentioned in the Discord, we had at least 1 or 2 people who were like, hell yeah, I freaking love that season, because we liked the show and we engaged with it strongly. So the idea behind season 16 is that you, the audience, and us, the podcasters, are as engaged as possible because we picked the show together. It's a collaborative effort.
Yeah. So let's talk about first the initial pool of shows that were submitted to you all for consideration. We created a Google form on the main feed a few weeks ago that included 32 shows. And we asked listeners, okay, rank these shows or vote on them or score them, rather, I guess is the best verb, on a scale of 1 to 3. A 1 being, nah, I don't think so. 2 is like, and a 3 is, yeah, you should look at that one. So we can talk about what led us to those 32. Do you want me to read the list out before we do that?
Yeah, go ahead and run us down the list.
Okay, so here are the 32 shows that were up for consideration. Alias, Ally McBeal, Battlestar Galactica, Dark Angel, Death Note, Felicity, Fighting Foodons, Fringe, Halt and Catch Fire, Hamtaro, Heroes, Hotel de Luna, Legend of Korra, Lex, Lois and Clark, Lost, Misfits, The OC, Orphan Black, Party of Five, Quantum Leap, Sequest DSV, Serial Experiments Lane, 6 Feet Under, Smallville, Smash, Stargate SG-1, The Tick, The Twilight Zone, 80s, Veronica Mars, X-Men Evolution, and Xena, Warrior Princess. So, Alan, what was the process that went into creating that list and some of the considerations that we made?
We have been trying to collate recommendations for a while from people in various places. Hey, you guys should check this out. Hey, I like the show. I wonder if you guys think it's good. That was like the base stuff. Was like, like Death Note's one that's been recommended to us. Like Lane has definitely been recommended to us more than once. I know a friend of the podcast, Jim, is a big fan of Heroes, and so he was vouching for that. And that gives us our basic pool of like, these are shows that people have at least once told us, hey, you would like this. From there, we added on shows that have been on really successful Pilot Chats episodes. That's our Patreon exclusive podcast. That's kind of like the blueprint for this, where we watch pilots and determine if they're good chat shows. And so we took some of the best Pilot Chats things and put them in here. And then we just kind of took stuff that, you and I had personal preference towards. I, for example, have been trying to get Lost on this podcast for years. And you have talked a lot about Orphan Black, and we piloted that way long ago before even doing Pilot Chats. So from there, it was also just like, what are some obscure-ish television shows from the eras that we like, the 90s, the 2000s? And that is generally how we got our 32 here.
Yeah. Yeah, there are definitely some shows that we tossed on here also to kind of like spread out what was happening. Like, I don't think we necessarily thought that Hamtaro was going to go all the way, but putting a 300 episode anime about a group of hamsters on here felt like a good balance to like, Stargate or something like that.
Totally.
So there's also a little bit of like some miscellany thrown into it. There were a couple shows where I think there was a bit of ambiguity that we should probably clear up. So for Twilight Zone, we specified the 80s version. So we're going to interpret and discuss the results of this, assuming that people read that and understand that we meant the 80s Twilight Zone specifically.
Yes.
I think another place where we can pretty safely make assumptions is there are multiple Battlestar Galacticas, but I would imagine everybody knew that we were talking about the remake from the 2000s and not the original from like the 70s or whatever. Do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, especially because a lot of the people who voted are patrons, and they know that we covered the pilot of 2000's Battlestar Galactica like a long time ago. So yeah, I would hope that one was implied. We definitely could have, at least just put in like a parenthetical. And I know also you mentioned the Tick. That was the biggest point of contention, is that there is, and I feel ashamed as a New Englander to not be more specific about the Tick content on our show. But there was a Tick show in 1994. That animated series is the one that we would be discussing. Not the 2016 to 2019 Amazon Prime show, The Tick, live action. Although I've heard that one's interesting. That is an oversight on our part, and so we apologize if most people who weren't sure asked. So thank you guys for holding us accountable. But yeah, that's our bad.
So which version did you say we're doing?
Well, see, this is the problem, right? Because there's also a 9-episode 2000s one.
Oh, that's what I thought we put on there.
It's only 9 episodes, though. It'd be so quick. It'd be a quick
tick.
Do
you think... So when people asked, you told them it was the 90s animated show?
Yes.
Interesting. When our friend Jim asked, and that would determine how he voted.
Yeah, I said the old one.
And how was he like, oh, cool?
Yeah, he didn't question that.
Interesting. Okay.
I think also he had voted before. He was like, I voted and I wasn't sure which tick you meant, but I still voted. So.
Okay. I only asked because the Tick did pretty well.
Yeah, hold on. I mean, we could the
Tick did very well.
There isn't too much Tick stuff. We could do like the animated one in a couple weeks, and then do the live action one, the aughts live action one in like 2-3 weeks, and then
Right. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And then we could, if we still had the energy and the desire, we could do the Amazon one.
Cool. Okay. So we'll sort of own like it's a little ambiguous which version of the tick because we aren't even on the same page about which version we meant.
Yes.
I think let's operate under the assumption that it's the animated one for now. Because I think the aughts one is like a perfect 13 under 13 show.
Yeah, right.
Because it's like 9 episodes and Patrick Warburton seems fun. So let's assume that for the purposes of this bracket and watching stuff, it's that one. Because I think also that means that there's a greater representation of animated shows on here. And if people are like, no, I meant the Patrick Warburton one, or no, I meant the Amazon one, let us know in the Discord. And if this makes an appearance on the bracket, we'll address that when it comes up.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Okay, great. So before we talk about the list that we submitted to you all, we also asked you to write in any shows that you thought should have been here. So we can kind of address that off the bat here. The only show that appeared twice in the write-ins was The Expanse, which I think would be a good pilot someday. My girlfriend really likes that show, so maybe we do a pilot chats with Amanda on The Expanse.
Yeah, I would love that. I actually just like a month or so ago was talking to a friend of the podcast, McKinley, of like we should watch a show together, and because we watched Strange New Worlds, and we're gonna watch Strange New Worlds season 2 together, and we're like, oh, what else can we watch? And we were like, oh, I think we would both want to watch The Expanse. We haven't touched it yet, but that was currently in contention as well.
Gotcha.
Like, I'll probably watch The Expanse in the next year or two, Matt, for sure.
Okay, sounds good.
But yeah, I'd love to pilot it with Amanda. Why not?
Great. There were a couple shows on here that we have piloted in the past that didn't make it onto our 32. First and foremost, Carnival. I think we just forgot.
I think straight up, this is a great show to chats, and we didn't put it on the list, and that's our bad. But thank you to whoever wrote that in.
Yeah, that's the biggest snub of this list, I think, was Carnival.
Could still be covered in like season 17. I don't see why not.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, there are a couple other ones we've piloted that I think for reasons of like differentiating, like Killjoy's Space Above and Beyond were fun shows, but we had so much sci-fi on this list that they didn't quite make the spread. And
now Yum Yum Pod is covering Space Above and Beyond, so there's a podcast doing it.
So you should check that out. Someone tried to troll us with Frasier, and by troll us, I mean give us a good time. And
hold on,
maybe it's our fault that we couldn't have had the best season of Chats ever.
Hey, punk, maybe I put it on there.
I don't think you did.
Okay, maybe I don't remember what I put.
I don't think you wrote anything in.
There are a couple of newer shows that I've talked a lot about on Should You Watch and on Chat's main feed that people wrote in, like Yellow Jackets. I'm caught up on this show. I don't think it would be a good chatsable show, partly because I know everything that happened so far, and partly like our Should You Watch on season 1 is very comprehensive, in my opinion. Season 2 is really good, and I've even talked about it on the main feed. I don't think that there's much more we can say. Maybe it's something we revisit in season 3 when the third season is coming out, like in a year or two. But I'm not like jazzed. I'm not buzzing, so to speak, pun intended, about doing Yellow Jackets as a pod. Last of Us, same thing. I watched it. I liked it. Beef, same thing. These are like new shows that I've like recommended, watched all of. Like I'm still watching a lot of these like big shows. And if people think that they're specifically chatsable, I'd love to hear more about why we think that is, and like if it's worth reconsidering. Like I would rewatch Beef with you if we wanted to chats it, but it's kind of like you watch it and then you're satisfied show. It's not extremely deep, you know. So
gotcha.
I feel that about both of those series, and I don't think you would like The Last of Us. It's very gory, and a little bit grim in certain parts. It's good, but it's like kind of rough.
There are a few shows on here that are like definitely in the chat's wheelhouse of things we'd probably be interested in covering that we just haven't piloted before that I think would make great pilot candidates. So like Flash Forward, The West Wing, Sliders. There are other things on here that I thought Dawson's Creek.
Yeah.
So I think these write-ins are great fodder for pilot chats episodes that we'll return to. The only other thing here that I think is worth mentioning is someone wrote in Buffy/Angel.
Yeah.
We had that conversation. And if I'm remembering correctly, we sort of agreed like, we're not really there right now. Wanted to rewatch those shows.
Yeah, for those who are new, Buffy and Angel were shows that we watched and discussed in a podcast form before we even called it chats. So there exists no Buffy Angel chat season, but it was basically our season -1.
Yeah, right.
And that was back in 2014. We were babies back then. And now with
Mhm.
like what we know about Joss Whedon and like the legacy of Buffy and Angel, like it just doesn't feel like the time for like two, male presenting people to be like, hey, I watched Buffy and had thoughts about it. Like it's just, I feel uncomfortable thinking about doing that, even though I still have a lot of fondness for that show. I just rewatched a scene from the Buffy finale recently. Speaking of watching things just to feel something.
Yeah, I don't think it's a, never say never. But I think our attitude towards the 32 is like, if any one of these won, we would actually do it.
Yeah, I want a show that like I will take all the way and not feel miserable, ideally, by the end of it.
Okay, so let's talk about our personal expectations and preferences going into it, and then we can look at some of the initial results.
Sure.
So what were you like? Let's say if we were to determine season 16 the traditional way, where you and I kind of meet and we have a short list and then we talk through it and figure out, well, which one are we kind of the most in agreement about? What was your short list from this 32 of shows that you would have liked to cover for season 16?
I think I'm a network TV girly. I love Lost and Heroes, especially.
Yeah.
I can't get that out of my head, the idea of covering either of those shows, because Heroes is such an unknown quantity to me. And now that we're in another WGA strike, I think it would just be so interesting to discuss a show that was completely hampered by the previous WGA strike. That, like, I think that would just be really interesting, like, and fun. And we like superhero stuff, and it's not that long, and like it's busted and it's artsy. Like, for me, Heroes feels like an easy slam dunk, to use a basketball metaphor.
Right.
I still have emotional attachment to Lost. That's in my like bucket of shows that I'm like, if we cover this, I'll be so happy because it's really busted. Speaking of getting hurt by writers' issues, and it's in the news again because Maureen Ryan just put out that book, Burn It Down, which is about different people higher up in the TV industry. And there's a specific section that went viral when she posted it online about Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse specifically, and the sort of honestly very toxic work environment for people of color on the set of Lost. So like Lost has been in the news, and that's not in a like the Joss Whedon thing is different, right? Because that's like the accusations against him, the things that he did and the way he treated those people goes against the spirit of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I don't think that knowing that the people who ran Lost are dumbasses and probably like really, really ignorant ruins Lost for me. Like, I think I can still enjoy, and I read that whole piece. I think people should check it out if they're curious. But like, it more speaks to how interesting that production was and how things need to systemically change in Hollywood to like make shows sustainable for different types of people again, and how they have changed since 2006. But all that is to say that like Lost is like hot heat for us right now, or for me at least. What about you?
Yeah, so both of us, so there was a system in the poll where people could name up to 5 shows to give super votes to, and we'll talk about what shows got the most super votes and how that kind of can factor into or not factor into the seating of this bracket. But both of us put Lost and Heroes in our super votes. We voted on the poll, you and I.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We also both put Smash because both of us had a blast piloting that show with Michelle. I recently re-listened to that pilot chats to be like, well, how did we feel about Smash? We loved it. God, it'd be so fun to watch something so hard on its sleeve. And then also they're working on that musical, and like, wouldn't that be just a kind of deviation in a way from some of the things we've been watching, but also a return to that sort of like Sorkin vibe of like, man, this thing is so earnest and so misguided and so fun and bad.
Yes.
So I think we both were excited about the idea of Smash, and also it's short. It's only 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So there was that. And then I also put on mine Dark Angel because we just piloted. I think it's a little recency bias. We just piloted it. It's short. The world was pretty interesting. And I think we might be let down
by it. That's my only concern.
I think so too. I don't think it did very well in the voting, so that's not the biggest heartbreak. For me, my biggest heartbreak is for like a couple years now, I've really wanted to Chats the OC. I don't know why, but I just can't get it out of my head. The idea of doing a teen drama sounds really fun. If you were to have given me the keys to make season 16 any show I want, I might have picked the OC.
And I would have Millie rocked with you all the way home, buddy.
I appreciate that.
It's just so interesting. And that Patrick H. Williams video planted the seed, and now I'm like, I would love to develop an OC hyperfixation. But
right. And I can see it. To me, it seems like the kind of show that's like really melodramatic, but we would get into it. And
yes,
like invest in it and do a lot of character analysis and those kinds of things. So I was pulling for it, but I don't think it did super well across the different ways of seeding this bracket, unfortunately. But this was an interesting experience for me. I was like watching the data come in day by day and like, crunching the numbers and watching things rise and fall. And it was a really valuable experience for me as someone who likes to come up with ideas for how we do the show and what we watch, to see what it is that people actually want us to watch.
Yeah. That's what I learned a lot from this. Is like, there are things that we think people like, and so much of the last couple of years of chats have been like, let's pivot lightly to fit what some people are saying. And then it's like, oh, actually, nope, that didn't work. Oh, that worked. That didn't work. It's the creative process. And having these numbers in front of us. And I got to tell y'all, Magellan's seeding methods, which we'll talk about shortly, are incredible. Just like looking at the raw data this is why people become data scientists, right? You can just learn so much.
So let's talk about those and get into actually seeding the bracket here. So I unnecessarily created 16 different ways of ranking shows based on the different pieces of data we got. Kind of just for us to like go through the thought experiment of seeing, well, what would happen if this happened and how did shows do via different metrics. We'll probably end up going with a seeding option that's closest to what we said in the form. In the form, we said we're going to add up all the numbers, and then the show with the highest scores win. Then we'll use super seeds to break ties, or super votes to break ties. So that's what we'll probably end up doing. But it's just so interesting to me to go through these other options. Yes. So I kind of want to do that.
Agreed.
Okay, so first and foremost, there are 3 ways of slicing it that I think represent classic approaches that we would take to doing the show. Let me actually, if we're assuming that the tick is the 1994 tick with 34 episodes, is that right? Because that changes the data. I created a formula to try to calculate chatsability.
36.
Just based.
Sorry,
36. Okay. I tried to create a formula to calculate chat's ability just based on 3 factors, like not acknowledging the content of the show. 3 factors: how many episodes it is, how far away it came out from the year 2000, and how much of it either of us have seen.
Yes.
So there are shows. So basically, the optimal show is a show with 1 episode that came out in the year 2000 that neither of us have seen. That's the most chatsable hypothetical show. The formula I used was, oh my gosh, 1 over the absolute value of the year it came out minus 2000. So the number of years away from 2000 it premiered, divided by 2. That was all in parentheses. Plus the number of episodes divided by 16. So that's 4 months. Plus a score that I assigned based on if you've seen it. And then plus a score that I've assigned based on if I've seen it. That was the calculation. I kind of tinkered to see what made sense. So these are the most chatsable shows. Serial Experiments Lane is mathematically the most chatsable show, followed by Fighting Foodons. Followed by Dark Angel, X-Men Evolution, 6 Feet Under, The Tick, Lex, Death Note, Felicity, Veronica Mars, Misfits, Alias, Sequest, DSV, Battlestar Galactica, The OC, and Heroes. Feels like a pretty good formula to me. I don't know.
Especially when you consider what the voted by most downvotes seed is. It's almost the exact same as the most disliked shows. So that's really
great. Yeah. So let's talk about super votes for a second, because I think another classic way that we in the past may have gone about picking a season is just by asking people what they're enthusiastic about and seeing where the most enthusiasm is.
Yeah.
So the top 2 shows with the top 2 most super votes are Death Note and Lost with 6 apiece.
Amazing. You're so good, listener. You're so good. You're so money.
I will say a third of Lost super votes came from us. So if you were to take us out, it would really be like tied for 3rd place at that point, or 4th place.
Before you're like, that's not fair. You guys are voting in your own poll. We are watching, my brother in Christ, we are watching the shows.
I should say 36 votes in the poll. So, we
job.
are making up a portion of it, but not a statistically large portion of it.
Right. Correct.
I will also say we were among the people who had the most positive votes.
Mm-hmm.
I had the most shows that I voted on with a 3.
Okay.
You had the third most.
Very nice.
JKK had the 2nd most. So
there we go.
My co-host on Super Smash Echoes.
Yes.
Thank you, Justin.
Positivity.
Yeah. So Death Note and Lost had the most super votes with 6. Twilight Zone had 5.
Awesome.
These next ones had 4 apiece. Do you want to read us that list?
Yeah, 4 apiece super votes are Lex, Veronica Mars, Battlestar Galactica, Heroes, Smash, and Legend of Korra. Again, I think people know this. We've made the point before. If Lex wins this entire bracket, this is the last season of Chats, the television podcast you are ever getting.
Correct.
We decided this when we piloted it a little over, I think, a year ago, because that show is so weird and so bizarre and yet appropriate for what we like to talk about, and yet creepy and unsettling, that it would just send us into such a spiral that we could never cover anything else. So by you super voting it, you are basically saying, I'm willing to run all the way to kill Chats.
There was a dark hour towards the end of the first day that the poll was up. Like within a couple hours in the evening, we got 4 anonymous poll results, and 3 of them super voted Lex and only
Insane.
Lex. And we were like,
insane.
Either this is like, well-meaning Lex fans, or this is like a conspiracy to try to end the podcast.
Yes.
But either way.
I'm being 100,000% sincere, by the way. If this wins,
we will commit to that bit. I am there ready to commit to that bit. Yeah.
Same. Sorry.
Yeah.
We'll do another. Maybe we'll start another podcast.
We'll start another
we won't.
podcast probably.
Yeah, let's be real.
Yeah. So those are the ones with the most super votes. And then coming in after those, we have a bunch of shows that had 3. A handful had 2. Very few shows had no super votes, which was nice to see. There were only 6. Only 6 shows that got 0. Fighting Foodons, X-Men Evolution, Lois and Clark, Orphan Black, Hotel de Luna, and Party of 5. I was surprised that Lois and Clark didn't get any.
Considering how much Nick, especially a friend of the podcast, Nick loves that show.
Yeah. But it is what it is, I guess. The other ones didn't surprise me quite as much, but yeah. And then another classic way that we might approach seeding this bracket would be just, again, like I said before, to look at where you and I have consensus. So both of us voted positively on 13 shows. So these were the 13 that both you and I were like, yes, I want to do that. Death Note, Lost, BSG, Heroes, Smash, Legend of Korra, The Tick, Halt and Catch Fire, Ally McBeal, Fringe, Dark Angel, The OC, and Orphan Black. So those were shows that if any of those win, we were both enthusiastic about them. And some of those shows did really well, and some of them really did not. So that'll be interesting to talk about.
Indeed. Yeah, I mean, if people some people really want us to watch Serial Experiments Lane, and yet some people also really explicitly do not. I think chats can cover anime. Why do you guys not want chats to cover any anime?
Yeah, there was definitely, we'd have to do some deeper data analysis, but there was definitely, at least anecdotally, some division between people who were like jazzed about anime options and voted for those highly, super voted them, and didn't really vote for a lot of other stuff. And then people who were like down on all of the anime options. I thought that was interesting.
Indeed.
So it's probably the most divisive genre except for shows with a female protagonist. It was probably also divisive. Not to roast everybody, but come on.
Come on.
Anyway, so the next 4 seating options are all based on focusing on positive votes as a driving factor. Because I was thinking we said we would combine positive, negative, but we could also just approach the seating where we just do the shows that got the most positive votes, regardless of neutrals and negatives.
Right.
So what do you, and I'll put together like a data report, some slides or something to go out with this episode so we don't have to read the list for every single seating option. But does anything jump out at you here from the approval seed list of the shows that got the most positive votes?
Yeah, I guess again the tick is going to be such a question mark because I need to know which tick people thought we were talking about, and that's just an issue. I'm glad that some of these seeds do keep Korra in here because we did Chatzpod and we watched the pilot of Korra, and that show does have legs, and I am interested in rewatching it, but like, if people don't want us to cover it, they don't want us to cover it. It's a little weird, right? Yeah. It's an interesting show. I feel a sort of enthusiasm about Quantum Leap because of the method with which we'd be watching it, right? Mm-hmm. So that got some good positive votes, and that would be a randomizer season. So we would just hit random, like Scott Bakula's character, and just jump into Sam Beckett jumping into a random body every week. Right. Are we watching the next episode in order? Hell no. Maybe we do land on the next episode sometimes. Probably not, though. Maybe we'll jump to the series finale first. So I like I do like the idea of like novelty chat seasons, but the rest of these are like pretty standard. Like I'm excited by the potential of Xena Warrior Princess also, and I'm glad that made a lot of these seeds.
Yeah, same. I was interested to see contrast between. So I have the approval seed of just overall positive vote totals. And then also what I'm calling the urgency seed, which is like shows that got the most positive votes on day 1 of the poll being out. Yeah. And there's a lot of shows that overlap, but some notable differences. So Legend of Korra, because like the way that we got the poll out is it was in the description of the episode. And then we pinged people who had been on the show before or had contributed to the show in some way, or friends of ours who we talked to about the podcast a lot and are interested in television, just to kind of get like a wide sample size. But there was a difference between the kind of day one priorities and the broadening of it. So like Legend of Korra, for example, is a show that did not place in the top 16 on that first day. Yeah. But as more people contributed to the poll, Legend of Korra rose and got better, which I think is interesting. I think it's a show that like there's a lot of enthusiasm for, kind of at the fringes of our sphere, but it's not a show that like a lot of core listeners are demanding we watch, which I just thought was an interesting thing. Other differences, Xena was also a show that did better as the poll spread wider. And then shows that were hurt by the poll spreading wider included, I'm just trying to compare here, Alias didn't do quite as well as time went on. Hamtaro cracked the top 16 and then crapped the bed as time went on. It was like one of the most hated shows for some reason. Smallville, relative to others as time went on, didn't get as many positive votes. Same thing with Lois and Clark and Lex. So those are shows that if we went by the day one positive totals would have made the top 16. But if we go by the overall positive totals, they fall out of contention, which I think makes sense given. Oh no, Hamtaro is still in actually top positive votes. It's tied for 14th. I misspoke.
Okay, there we go.
So Hamtaro slightly improved itself as time went on, but somehow garnered the most negative votes, which we'll talk about. It doesn't make sense.
It's Hamtaro time. Itchy.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. I also calculated a seed based on positive votes divided by episode number, which was kind of interesting. I don't think there's much for us to chat about there, but that's another thing you'll see in the report. And then I calculated a seed that combines positive votes with super votes, and that ends up helping shows like Lost get into higher seeding. That helps. Who else does that help? That helps keep Smallville alive in the bigger picture.
Barely.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of the big stuff there. Far and away Stargate with the most positive votes of any show, which was surprising to me. I didn't realize people would be that enthusiastic about Stargate. I guess it's not far and away. It got 20, and everything that placed after it, tied for second, got 18. But in a poll of 36 votes. Yeah, makes a difference. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about this next chunk of seating options, because this is where I think it gets really fun. Yes. So I created 3 rankings that are more based on negativity. So if we really wanted to like piss people off, how would we do that? Because that's fun, right?
Always fun.
So let's take a look at the shows that got the most negative votes. Number 1 is Hamtaro.
Hey, gal. I want to just say, I want to briefly thank friend of the podcast, Kat. I don't know if they super voted it, but they definitely said I'm absolutely voting for Hamtaro to the best of my ability.
I think somebody super voted it. So
okay, probably them. Thank you.
Do any of these other ones jump out at you? The ones that got high disapproval from the audience?
Let me tab right over.
Or any trends speak to you here?
Yeah, we talked earlier. Anime doesn't trend well at all.
Yeah.
The OC not trending well bums me out. I just want to know why. Do you guys not care to hear us talk about it? Are you bored? Or is there too many OC podcasts? I don't believe that. And then Party of 5, our rogue pick kind of was like a midnight hour. Like, this could be fun.
Yeah, and I think it was the last one we added, probably.
Yeah, and everyone said no, not fun. Disagree. Mm-hmm. Also, I didn't think the K-drama was gonna do well, but like, really, one of the most negatively voted shows, really? Okay. I'm still gonna watch Hotel Luna because IU is awesome, and that show, its pilot is amazing. But to each their own, cross to bear.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. I think it's interesting to look at this and see a lot of shows I think probably didn't do well because of their reputation as being like not that great, or maybe it was just subject matter that people weren't interested in. So like Smash, The OC, Ally McBeal strike me as like, nah, I don't really want to watch something like that. And then I think some of these are also like people might have had different philosophies on when they were voting, if they would vote neutral on something that they didn't know or negatively on something they didn't know. Because like Lois and Clark getting that many negative votes strikes me as people just like don't like the sound of it or don't know what it is. But maybe people know it and they're like, I don't want you to watch it. I don't know. So it's interesting. There was a lot of variance in among voters in terms of how many positive, neutral, and negative votes people gave. Although on average, those totals were roughly similar. On average, 10.3 positive votes, 12.5 neutral votes, 9.1 negative votes. But individual voters varied quite significantly in how many they assigned of each. Now, okay, this is the one I really want to talk about the most. The controversy seed.
Yes.
I was excited when I came up with this one. So I wanted to figure out, well, what show could we do that would provoke the most debate, discussion, disagreement? And so mathematically what I did is I had it look at the positive vote total and the negative vote total and take the lower of the two numbers. And that is like, the higher that number is, the better you're doing. Because to me, what that means is it's a show where people didn't vote neutral very often, and they were split between positive and negative. So the shows that did the best in that scheme, that were the most controversial, were The Twilight Zone and Lost. So The Twilight Zone, 13, 8, and 15 were the vote totals. 13 negative, 8 neutral, 15 positive.
Huh.
Let's talk about Lost.
Okay.
And tell me what you think about this.
Yeah.
Lost, 13 negative, 10 neutral, 13 positive.
Oh my God. You guys.
One of the shows with the most super votes.
What
perfectly split in half.
Oh, that's so wild. I want to say, like, this is amazing. We did such a good thing here, though, right? Because that's such a that's an exemplary controversial pick. People vehemently, specifically said, don't cover it. And other people said, I will do everything in my power for you to cover it. Completely split in twain. The sword of Damocles hangs over Lost.
Yeah.
Incredible work. We should just cover it. Fuck you guys. This whole bracket's useless. I don't care anymore. We're doing Lost. Wow.
Had no wacky, idea. Huh? Never could have predicted. For a while, it was the leading controversial pick. But then the Twilight Zone pulled ahead.
Do you guys understand? I'm like looking at my monitor like it's the listener. Do you guys understand what would happen if we covered Lost? People are like, I want you guys to like be enthusiastic. I fucking love that show. It's so amazing. It has so many good moments. They're like, oh, it's going to be like too good. You're just going to like it. No, it's not. It sucks at the same time. It's also one of the dumbest shows ever made. It's broken and busted, and there's a whole episode about somebody's tattoos. It's so chatsable. It's 6 seasons of pure chatsable goodness. I'm just saying.
I think this whole controversy seed is honestly, we're not going to pick this as the way to seed the bracket because this would be like a terrible choice.
Goes against the whole point of the bracket.
Right. But this, I think, more than any other set, is the set of shows that I would be the most interested to take through this process. The Twilight Zone, Lost, Hamtaro, The OC, Legend of Korra, Smallville, Heroes, Alias, Ally McBeal, Death Note, Halt and Catch Fire, Xena, 6 Feet Under, Lois and Clark, Dark Angel, Orphan Black. Fucking fascinating season of highs and lows, genre disparity. Like, what is television?
Varying length, so much history, so much interesting competition. I'm grabbing for the screen now. Like, I wish I could be in that world.
No, we're gonna be the show where we watch good shows instead, which is fine. That's cool.
It's fine. I'm allowed.
I also played around a bit and tried to create what I called the rage seed, which is multiplying the negative score by the super score. I don't know if that makes mathematical sense, but I think it approximates rage in a fine way, because the top 5 of Lost, Smash, Twilight Zone, Death Note, and Lex feel like those would be, maybe not Twilight Zone. I honestly don't know why that got so many negative votes. People just might not be interested in it.
Yeah.
But Lost, Smash, Death Note, and Lex feel like the shows that would provoke the most rage among us and listeners, I think. So you can also see that list in the report. Great. So let's skip over net for a second, because I think that's what we're going to end up doing.
Yeah.
There's some other things you'll see in the report that I'll just sort of talk through real quick. So there was one option where I call it the passion seed, where I just totaled positive and negative votes. So we, regardless of how people feel about the show, we just watch the show that has the most feelings associated with it. Just kind of a fun way to do it.
This is also a great list.
Yeah, it's a fun list. Then there's the acceptance seed, which is the set of shows positive plus neutral. I was interested to see some shows that got the most neutral votes, which I want to talk about. So let me sort by most neutral. I'll tell you some of the top ones here.
Okay.
Felicity and Hotel de Luna had the most neutral votes of any show.
I think that's bad. I think it means that if people don't care, then we're doing something wrong. Although I do really want to, I'm still interested in Felicity. It seems like people just don't care explicitly about Felicity.
Right. Yeah, which makes sense. It kind of seems like what's the sell? She goes to college. She's in a love triangle. That actually sounds awesome. But
yeah, hold on, wait.
Hotel de Luna, probably it's a genre thing or a familiarity thing.
Yeah, and people have to Google it. Then they're going to be like, I don't really care what this is.
Yeah. And then Misfits, Sequest, Orphan Black. Those all feel like I haven't heard of that show, probably.
Yeah.
But I thought Orphan Black was bigger than this. I was kind of surprised that it didn't do super well.
Maybe it's just been a while and we're past the point of hype for that show.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do people know what Hotel de Luna's about? Or are they just like, it's a K-drama, I don't care? Do you know what it's about?
I don't know what it's about. Is it about a hotel?
It's about a hotel for ghosts.
Oh, sheesh.
It's about a hotel for dead people. An elite hotelier gets to know the establishment's ancient owner and her strange, unique world. So it's about her,
that sounds fun.
Yeah, getting her guests, protecting them, getting them back to the hotel, why they stay there, when they leave, etc.
Oh.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Neither here nor there.
I really actually would want to pilot that or something.
Yeah.
I think we should do a K-dramas pilot chat at some point. I think that'd
agree.
be fun.
We have guests who would be on that.
Yeah. Okay, so that's most neutral, and that's the like positive plus neutral. What are the shows people would be most willing to accept? Fringe tops that list. Fringe was leading everything for a while, and then got supplanted by Stargate as the nerds came out of the woodwork, I guess, or something.
Fucking goblins.
Although nerds picking Stargate over Fringe, it's hard to. Anyway. And then I had some kind of wacky little calculations towards the end here. One that I think is a potentially reasonable contender for how we actually seed the bracket is we have a list that's based on a net score, which is positive minus negative, which is mathematically the same as if we just totaled 1s, 2s, and 3s. It's the same relative placement. So there's that, but there's also what I'm calling the favor seed, which is where we weight positive votes more heavily. So we do 2 times positive minus negative. I think there's a rationale for doing that, which is like not exactly what we sold people on, but is worth discussing. There's also, and then there's these kind of like wacky ones. I tried to calculate cult status.
Yeah, right.
So here's how I did that. I multiplied the super votes by how far the neutral votes were from the average neutral and came up with what I mathematically think are the shows that are the most like are broadly neutral but are beloved by a small cult of people.
Oh, and these feel accurate.
So
Wow.
Lex is number 1.
Yep.
BSG, Misfits, Alias, Felicity, Smallville, 6 Feet Under, Sequest, Dark Angel, Xena, The Tick, Ally McBeal, Fringe, Veronica Mars, Serial Experiments Lane, Halt and Catch Fire, Quantum Leap. Also a pretty good season.
Yeah.
Feels
Weird.
like a fun list. Weird. But these are the shows that got lots of neutrals and lots of super votes, which I think is an interesting combination. But yeah.
I love it. I love that. I actually really like that scene. I'm glad you made that. That's a really weird... I understand how you got to that data, but I'm like, wow, I didn't expect it to work, and it did.
And then of course there's like the seed of seeds, so it's like which shows showed up on the most top 16 lists across all these weird considerations. Yeah. And the shows that placed most frequently were Halt and Catch Fire, Heroes, and Death Note. They're just in that perfect sweet spot of like a lot of people like them, a lot of people don't like them, but they're kind of controversial but kind of good. That feels right to me.
Kind of bad, kind of hated, but also loved. Yeah, this is like how I want to be in real life.
Yeah. So
the seed.
Yeah, so let's talk. I think the only 3 contenders really for how we actually seed the bracket are a straight up net score, positive votes minus negative votes, a net score where we remove ourselves, or a score where we weight positive votes more heavily than negative votes. So we do 2 positive minus negative. Does that feel fair to you? Are there any others that you felt like were reasonable, or does that feel like the 3?
The one that, if you just asked me sight unseen, what would be my like most fair method, is include us. Positive votes are +1, negative votes are -1, super votes I feel like should be actually +2, or they settle a tie. And then neutrals, I don't really know how you handle neutrals though with that.
In this net case, neutrals are zeros. Because if we just added like positives are 3s, neutrals are 2s, negatives are 1s, that's the same thing as saying positives are 1s, neutrals are 0s, and negatives are -1s.
Binary. Even if it's in binary.
But yeah, I guess that is a consideration of, should super votes add to the positive total, or should they just be used to place shows in the seeding? Because what we said in the form was, if there are ties in seeding, we'll break them based on super votes.
If we said that, we should do that. We should stick to what the super vote says.
Yeah, so I think let's roll with that. So then the real question is, amongst these options, the difference between including ourselves versus not is that if we take ourselves out, there's actually a couple extra shows that go beyond 16, and we'd have to do like a play-in or some consideration of what is the actual 16th seed.
Right.
But all that does is it actually helps shows. It doesn't hurt any shows. It might like lower the seeding of certain shows that we liked that maybe audience members didn't, or vice versa.
Also, always worth noting, whatever the seed is, whatever we land on, as long as it's the 16 shows that are that get covered, at the end of the day, we're still deciding in play what goes further. So like seeding is seeding. It determines what they go against, but not whether or not they win.
Very true. And then the like favor seed, which includes ourselves, looks very similar to the net votes. The main difference is, I'm just double checking. The main difference is that the net seed has Orphan Black, while the 2 positive -1 negative has Lost. And that's the only difference. The 2 positive -1 negative is the only option where Lost is on the bracket, unfortunately.
No, fortunately, I guess I know which bracket I want, or which seed I want.
Let me see what it looks like when we do the favor seed, but we take our votes out. And it's just based on audience votes. Let's see.
We're crunching numbers here. This is the numbers crunching podcast. I'll play the music under this part. Do do do. What? Do 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 do
Huh.
do 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 do.
Okay, just give me one more second. Audience plus is P. T. Okay. So I have crunched the numbers. So if we base things on audience favor score, Lost barely squeaks in right at the bottom as the 16th seed of that bracket.
Okay.
So that bracket would be, let me just see what's the difference between that and ours. Or rather, how that differs from audience net is what I should look at. Yeah, it helps Lost, and that's pretty much the only. And it hurts a lot of those shows that would have been competing for the 16th seed in the audience net. So like Alias, Smallville, Orphan Black, those get knocked out, and Lost gets knocked up. So we're really like making decisions about the 16th seed here.
Yeah. We still should pick based on the most democratic, even not just on what we want 16th seed to be.
Yeah. So I think.
Which ones am I looking at, by the way? Sorry, which seeds should I be looking at?
I didn't make a like view on the dashboard for the audience favor, but you should be looking at the yellow ones and the first blue one. And here I'll hide everything else.
Oh, perfect. This works.
Audience favor. That list doesn't look any different from favor with us, with our votes included. It's just the ordering is slightly different. Mm-hmm. So we can make a call based on these three lists here.
So net seed is positive minus negative.
Yep.
It's +1 -1, right?
Yep.
Super votes break ties.
Yep.
Audience seed positive minus negative, but when we're not included.
Yep.
I'm not interested in that one.
Okay.
Does it feel? How do you feel about that? I know I'm like, sometimes I can like be hard-headed and I'm willing to be flexible, but I really feel like we should be included in these voting.
I think what's compelling to me about this particular list is that it would give us more flexibility, because like people might actually be more interested in listening to us talk about Smallville than Orphan Black, for example.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a minor swap, but that to me is almost worth it enough to do the audience one. On principle, I agree that like it should be okay for our votes to count, but also if I were to discount anybody's votes for the sake of more intriguing options, I'm comfortable discounting our votes, if that makes sense.
Yes, and also worth noting again, number one, our votes are not worth more than anyone else's votes. We didn't like give ourselves double points.
Mm-hmm.
We vote as much as you guys do.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, we're watching the show. And number three, regardless of what the seed is, we are the ones who pick what moves forward. So if we choose the non-host one, then it's like, you guys gave us the picks and we decided. Right. I'm actually okay with that too.
Yeah. So I'm kind of leaning, we take the audience votes, take the net of positive negatives, and then we use super votes to break. And actually super votes might determine which of these three get placed between Alias, Smallville, and Orphan Black.
Okay.
Okay, great. So let's freaking seed this thing, yeah?
Yeah, this is but it's not a top 16 yet, but it'll become a top. We're about to make it into a top 16.
Yeah. So the number 1 seed is Stargate SG-1.
Congratulations.
Can you read me as they go down? Oh, no, 2, we got to break a tie, right?
Yep.
Okay, so between the Tick and Fringe, we're going to have to see which of these have more super votes. The Tick has 3 and Fringe has 2.
The Fringe.
The Fringe. So the Tick will be our number 2 seed.
Which means Fringy is on seed 3.
Yeah.
Okay. 4, 5, 6, 7 are all fair seeds. Quantum Leap is 4. Veronica Mars 5th seed. Death Note 6th seed. Good job, Death Note. Let's get anime back on the show. 7th seed, Battlestar Galactica. Oh, actually,
Okay.
8 and 9 are also determined.
Okay, great.
Wow, we got 2. They fucking put 3 sci-fi shows in the 4 sci-fi shows in
so
top 8.
I'm putting this into a separate document. So can you read me those again, starting at the 4th seed?
4 is Quantum Leap.
Okay.
5 is Veronica Mars.
Okay.
6 is Desu Notu. Death Note.
6. Okay.
Notu. 7 is Battlestar Galactica.
Battlestar Galactica.
Buffy. If we don't recover the Battlestar from Galactica, then Moya will die.
All right. 8.
Misfits.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, that's the Misfits Police. They don't want us to cover this. 9th is a tie.
Between.
So, Heroes and Sequest DSV.
All right.
Ooh.
Between the two, Heroes had 4 super votes. The Sequest had 1.
Yeah!
So Heroes is the 9th seed, right?
Yes, correct.
And Sequest is the 10th seed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 11th seed is a tie. It's tell me when you're ready.
Yep, I'm ready.
It's Xena Warrior Princess versus Halt and Catch Fire.
They both had 3 super votes. Halt and Catch Fire had 1 more positive vote.
Okay.
So I think we should give it to Halt and Catch Fire.
Yeah, definitely.
So that would make it the 11th seed.
Yep. And Xena's 12.
Xena's the 12th. All right.
Okay, 13 is Legend of Korra.
Hold on 1 second. Halt and Catch Fire. Xena. Warrior Princess. And you said 13 is Legend of Korra, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
14 is a tie between the Twilight Zone 1980s and 6 Feet Under.
Okay. Between the two, Twilight Zone 80s has more super votes.
Okay. That's 14 and 15. Yes, we're going to watch 6 Feet Under again. Let's go!
All right. Twilight Zone. 6 Feet Under. Okay. And now the play-in tournament down here between
Alias, Smallville, and Orphan Black.
All right. Between those 3, Orphan Black had 0 super votes. Alias and Smallville both had 3, and both had the same number of positive votes.
Oh. Who had fewer negatives?
Oh, they both had the same number of positives and negatives from the audience. One of us voted Smallville negative.
Interesting.
But this feels like a coin toss situation to me.
Let's take Alias.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Very interesting. Very interesting stuff. What is that noise?
That's like a new type of siren. Kind of cool.
I don't know what that was. Okay, cool. So quite the bracket we've got here. Pour one out for Lost that could have just squeaked right on in if we had a slightly different formula or if we added super votes to positive votes. Yeah, kind of, maybe we'll do. I want to watch it. Does that count for something?
Should we delete this episode and just say that, hey guys, weird, Lost got 32 positive votes. It really swept it. We don't feel I need to do a bracket because I got so many pluses.
A perfect score. Yeah, we should. Cool. So that's our 16. Do you have any predictions about what you think is gonna win, or any matchups on here that look interesting to you in the Google Doc on the 3rd page?
Third do. Oh, you made it. Okay, great. Okay. So Death Note, Hall Catch Fire. That's Interesting. Twilight Zone Fringe.
Misfits
Very
versus Heroes is an interesting first round matchup.
That's
I kinda like
awesome. That's gonna be a
Yeah.
great matchup. I love it when they're thematically similar. Like the
Yeah.
Tick versus 6 Feet Under sucks. I'm sorry. That's like
that. I do
see.
like Battlestar versus Sequest. That's fun. Did you say that
That's
one?
excellent. Yep.
Uh,
No, I didn't say that when I saw it.
Fringe versus Twilight Zone is also fun. that's
yeah. Clearly inspired by each other.
Yeah.
Some of these just don't make sense, and that's what I like about this. What is
Mhm.
Quantum Leap doing against Legend of Korra? Those have never been thought about in the same world.
Losing. That's what it's doing.
No.
I'm dead. Cool. So our first round begins next week with Stargate SG-1 versus Alias, which is just a delightful thing to think about.
Yeah.
We should talk
Well,
about... Oh, go ahead. What did you say?
You're about to say what I'm going to say. We should talk about how we're watching these, what we're watching exactly.
Yeah. So tell me if you agree with this. I think the proper way to go about it is to watch one episode of each show per week. And then discuss them and decide in our conversation which one we want to continue watching. I think probably the prevailing question should just be like, which of these would you rather watch a lot more of? And that'll probably lead us in the right direction. And my gut says you and I each get a vote. And if we tie, we toss it to the audience.
Right. Say, hey guys, this is going to be a tie. We need you to make some picks. Okay.
Yeah. Does that work for you?
It does. I think for like Stargate SG-1, because the other thing is that some of these are 90-minute pilots, right? And like we've already watched the Stargate SG-1 pilot. So
yeah.
Do you rank the Alias pilot versus the Stargate 90-minute, or do you rank it against the first normal length episode of Stargate?
Yeah, that's a good question because we've piloted quite a few of these shows.
Yes, we have.
We piloted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 out of the 16.
Besides laziness, the other reason why I want to go skip to episode 2 instead of rewatching the 90-minute pilot, and to see what a normal episode of the show is like, because like pilots are great, but like if we just keep doing pilots, then this is essentially just pilot chats for several weeks. I think that we can branch out and be like, what is a normal episode of the show? What does episode 2 of this show look like? For ones that we've definitely recently watched, and we can, I don't know. Maybe it's a responsibility thing, though, where we owe it to them to watch just the pilots.
Right, like a fairness thing, you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Because,
like,
oh, you guys watched Stargate episode 2, but the Alias pilot is the worst episode, and the second episode's the best episode. And it's like, well, that's challenging.
And some of these also, we haven't watched the pilot in a long time. Like Misfits, we piloted as one of the first 10 pilot chatses.
Yeah, we would definitely rewatch.
Or like Korra, we piloted when we were watching Avatar. So
I think we should just watch the whatever.
We should probably just watch the pilots for the sake of fairness. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd like to take some more specific notes on the Stargate pilot, although I do remember mostly liking it.
Yeah.
Weird snake man.
Yeah.
So Stargate and Alias next week?
Stargate and Alias next week. Do you have a pick to win it all?
Oh, I'm going to fight so hard for Heroes, dude. You don't understand.
Yeah, that's a good contender.
Tooth and nail.
My gut says this is a fringe year.
Yeah, I think that's a high chance.
Yeah.
I think 6 Feet Under is actually going to go surprisingly far, especially in its seed. It's like wild how good how.
Oh my god, yeah. Yeah, round 2 when it goes up against Sequest DSV.
Yeah, come on. Come on. But again, remember that's gonna be their episode 2. So let's see if 6 Under keeps the pace, or if Sequest suddenly finds its footing. Oh, this is gonna be so fun! It's so fun. It bing bong. The dolphin is gonna walk around by episode 2. There's a dolphin at Sequest. It's awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so let's read the descriptions of the pilots of these two shows. I'll read the Stargate one, and you read the Alias one. Does that sound fun?
That sounds perfecto.
For next week for Stargate SG-1, we're rewatching the 2-part series premiere, Children of the Gods, parts 1 and 2. Colonel Jack O'Neill is summoned for a rescue mission to planet Abydos to find scientist Daniel Jackson and to explore the universe through the Stargates. Now, I got to tell you something real quick.
Yes.
Do you remember when we did that statistical which character are you personality quiz for a Knights episode years ago?
Yeah, I do.
I recently retook it, and one of my highest rankings characters that I was similar to was Daniel Jackson from Stargate.
No, the nerdy guy.
The nerdy guy. So I'm
Let's
excited to
go.
revisit it for that reason.
That's awesome. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And then we are also watching the pilot of Alias, which is called Truth Be Told. In this episode, Sydney Bristow discovers that her job as an agent for SD6, a top secret division of the CIA, holds some deadly secrets that threaten the security of the free world. JJ, bring it. If we're not going to watch Lost, we might as well watch the other JJ Abrams show that aired on, get this, September 30th, 2001.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I'm excited and nervous. That's got the same energy as Dark Angel too. That's the spirit of Dark Angel.
Yeah, I'm glad Alias made
Alias.
it on. I'm curious to watch Alias.
Me too, man. So we'll be choosing between those two next week and talking about them both with their pilots. Let us know what you guys think. I hope you listened through the whole thing and didn't just click the document to see what the seed was, but that's fine if you did that. This was really fun. Magellan, thank you for compiling all of this incredible data.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you to the listeners and to everybody out there who voted. 30 plus people voting on our little silly podcast for what they want us to watch is like awesome. Like that's like a lot of cool engagement.
Yeah.
So you all rule for doing that. Even if your favorite show didn't make it, that doesn't mean, like I said last time, that doesn't mean that it's never going to get covered. It's just not this time. So stay with us as we delve into season 16 and pick a show soon. John, do you want to tell people where they can find you elsewhere on the podcast?
Sure thing. You can listen to me on another podcast called Super Smash Echoes that I do with my friend Justin, who is the second most positive person in our survey. Love Justin very much. Super Smash Echoes, we play video games related to the Super Smash Brothers franchise. So check us out. What about you?
Yes, indeed. I'm on a couple of other shows. I'm on scanlinemedia.com. We just, as of this the time this comes out, The Garnet Wager is back, our weird Korean game show discussion podcast with a twist. And boy, it is a 16-minute introductory twist, and you'll love it, and you'll want to stick with us for the whole season. I'm also doing the Creature Quorum periodically with my co-host Six over there, and I am the primary host of Talking Marketing, which is a bi-monthly marketing podcast for American Marketing Association Boston. All of those can be found wherever you listen to podcasts. Do we have a plug zone? Do we do plugs on this show?
This is a main feed episode, so we should.
Okay, great. Can you plug us this week?
Sure thing. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can do so in a few different ways. You can email us at chatspot@gmail.com with any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions. If you want to hop on for one of these matchups or send us a message or your vote, that would be really fun. So you could email us like, hey, between these two, I think this is the better one, or give us a little voice message or something. Tell us if you're team Daniel Jackson or team Alias person. Sydney Bristow. Yeah, I think that'd be nice.
We should say two things about that. Number one, yes, if you want to guest on any of these matchups, you can see the bracket in the presentation that Magellan's going to make. So if you're like, I can't wait for you guys to do, 6 Feet Under versus the Tick, I want to be on that specifically, let us know ahead of time, please. And also, we have some more fun things that we're going to announce about the shows that got picked.
Yeah.
If you like chats and you like television.
So look forward to that.
Magellan knows.
Very fun stuff coming up for chats. Anyway, you can also follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/chatspod. You can join fellow listeners on our subreddit, reddit.com/r/chatspod. And
all of the websites are falling apart. Twitter's almost gone. Reddit's almost gone. We're going to...
Oh, really? Reddit's almost gone?
Yeah, everyone's on like a Reddit black. There's like hundreds of subreddits on a blackout right now because of it. They're charging developers to use their API, which is like a lot of money. Gracious. It sucks. Anyways, we might not have Reddit in a couple weeks. Who knows?
Yeah. Anyway, so catch us on Blue Sky and
Mastodon
and
Neopets,
ChatGPT, Neopets. Well, Neopets is like doing cryptocurrency. So
I gotta tell you a ChatGPT story after the pod.
Okay, please. Anyway, you can do all that. You can support us on Patreon. And if you do so, you will get at $1 a month access to the Discord, where you can talk all season long about the highs and lows and the drama of these different matchups. You can also back us at $3 a month, which gets you access to twice monthly bonus content, including many of the Pilot Chats episodes that spawned our interest in these individual shows. And then at $5 a month, you get thanked at the end of every main feed episode. Our current $5 patrons include Arthur, Emrys, Jen, Justin, Kat, Lee, my mom, Marcus, May Louise, Michael, Nick and Pat of the Brothers in Infinite War, Six, and Stefan. I do want to know where the brothers land on each of these matchups. If you both could send in a weekly, just like, hey, Nick's here, Pat's here kind of thing. I would honestly, ultimately we're going to have to choose the show that we actually want to watch. But if this whole thing was decided by the votes of the Brothers in Infinite War, that would be truly,
what we can actually just do?
Stellar.
I don't think this is.
They're the second round, and then if they're tied, it goes to the general.
Yeah, we keep passing it down. No, what I was gonna say is just make like a challenge or whatever. That's like you guys can predict who you think is gonna win the bracket, and we take people's picks, whatever.
Yeah, let's do that. So that'll be linked in the description. You can make your own brackets, and maybe we'll have a pizza party for whoever's bracket is the most accurate or something like that. Great. You can also support the show by rating us on Apple Podcasts, by subscribing to us on YouTube, Chats, a Television Podcast, and by recommending us to a friend who might be interested in one of the shows we're talking about, checking out our website at chatspod.com, and of course supporting at Camillustrator, the creator of our podcast art. Alan, we like to end these episodes by talking about chatsums, little things for folks to snack on between now and next time. What's your chatsum for this week?
It's weird because I'm always like, I don't have enough IRL chatsums. And that's because like the stuff that's making me happy and fulfilled in real life is like not something I can recommend to you guys. But like life is going well. It's not to say like I'm only doing media chatsums because life is boring. Like, no, life's actually really good right now. It's just, what am I going to recommend to you guys? Live the life that I do? No, you can't do that. It's mine. Give it back. So my media chatsums. I'm still enjoying the Clone High reboot. It's got ups and downs. It's solid though. But that's not a new chatsum. I haven't watched a new movie. I'm still playing Street Fighter 6. I have a book chatsum. I started a book. So the last like novel that I tried reading was way back in January. I got a copy of The Sun Always Rises by Ernest Hemingway from City Lights bookstore in San Francisco when I visited friend of the podcast JKK. And I hated that book. I thought I liked it. There are parts of it that I liked, and I completely burned out on reading for about 5 months. And then I was like, I need something that just makes me, I just need to feel something. I need like an emotionally charged, relatively short book with like short chapters that I can just do. And I've been reading Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel lately. And it is hitting, man. So this is the book from 2014 that got adapted into one of my favorite HBO series of the last couple of years, back in 2021. The book is very different from the show. That's why I consider this a separate chat. I've definitely chatted some Station 11 before. The elevator pitch, horrible, deadly virus, flu, whatever, kills a huge percentage of the population in like 2020 something. And then we jump forward 20 years and we follow a traveling troupe of Shakespeare performers and actors and musicians and whatnot as they take Shakespeare around the country. And it jumps back and forth in time a lot to before the virus, after the virus, different characters, different perspectives. What I love about this book and about Mandel's writing is she cuts right to the core of like what is emotionally resonant about a certain moment. Because like, yeah, this is technically post-apocalyptic fiction, but like she dives into like what it feels like to watch King Lear at a really big theater and watch a beautiful performance and how that feels. Or like the conversations people have at 3 a.m. after a party where somebody got into a fight. Like just like gets right into the meat and potatoes and leaves nothing behind. So I'm really getting a kick out of it. It's a great book to read before bed. If you've watched the show, give it a shot. It fleshes out stuff that you didn't think needed fleshing out. If you haven't watched the show, you can read this first and then watch the show. Either way, live your life, live your truth.
Nice.
What about you, Magellan?
I recently learned to play a new sport, which is fast growing sport in America, and for good reason. It's very fun. It's pickleball.
Wow.
My girlfriend's mom taught me how to play pickleball, and she was playing against me and my girlfriend's sister's boyfriend 1v2, and she smoked us 3 games in a row. It was awesome.
Wow.
I loved it. If you like ping pong, badminton, and tennis, there's another one of those. But it's got a funny name and weird rules. It honestly feels like whoever made up the rules for pickleball was just trying to like confuse people or like trying to like make a game that was like legally distinct from all of these other things. So anyway, but I recommend it. It's a fun time at the driveway.
Why is it called pickleball?
I honestly don't know. Part of the court's called the kitchen.
They need after Pickles the dog while sitting in the law. What? There's a dog named Pickles? What the fuck?
The lore goes deep.
The pickle boat races? Yeah. I can't read about this right now. That's great though. Pickleball is a great chat sim.
Yeah.
Well, Magellan, thank you for being the LeBron James to my Kobe Bryant, because we can't be seated together.
Maybe one day we'll meet in the finals.
And we'll see you guys next week for the first round of Chat Season 16. So, peace out. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.